Namaskaram and Namaste. My name is Sumit Chatterjee from the Flow Zone Academy and co-founder of Primal Sutra. I am a flow state specialist. It's so good to be here, man. Talking another day, multi-dimensional March. Today, I believe, is day 21. 21, okay? Here we go. Let's get started, okay? This is a really, really important topic. So a really long time ago, eons, light years ago, okay? No, it's just maybe like a few years back, maybe. Or maybe like 9 months back or something, right? We came across this concept and I got this word in my head, Hakoya, 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 Hakoya. I didn't even know what a Hakoya was, okay, at the time. Later on, I get to know it's actually pronounced Heyoka, okay? Now, Heyoka is in Native American, in that world, in that pantheon, in that lineage, right, from the Lakota tradition. And all of this stuff is coming from Chief Deno, one of my guides, right? He's telling me about the Heyoka. Now I heard it as a Koya at the time, so we ran with it. And the reason why he let me run with that understanding is because the Heyoka is the sacred clown. Okay. The wise fool, in a sense. If you really understand that there is something called crazy wisdom, okay, there's something called crazy wisdom. Now, crazy wisdom was a term first introduced by Chogyam Trungpa, okay, Rinpoche, and he had his whole, debacles and shenanigans that he used to get up to, right? Like he would get, like after all of his monastic order was done, and I believe he got into drunk driving or something like that, as my dad told me, and he got into a bunch of different things. So, but he was one of the teachers, my dad said, who would really pinpoint, right, the basic essential teachings of Buddhism and explain it to the West. And he explained it through this thing called crazy wisdom, okay? This kind of shock factor, right? And they use the same kind of sensationalism in news, I believe, or they use, there's different parts of society that understands the Heyoka, but the Heyoka is much more compassionate and caring than you think. It actually cares about people more than you think, right? Because when somebody's being crazy, you think that, well, this is a weird person, let me stay away. Let me not learn from this person, right? I want to be nothing like that, okay? Someone flinging poop at the wall, right? Eating some kind of a scorpion, or like, tying their tongue up or something like that, right? Growing their nails like a ginormous size or something like this. And you go, what are they trying to teach me? What the fuck even is that, right? That is crazy wisdom, my friends. And it's actually split into two realms. And I want to bring up this nuance because a lot of times people get it confused and they think it's like for instance, people drinking blood, like the Heruka. That's one side of it, right? The Heruka, and they're more so associated with the wrathful beings, okay? And there are these wrathful awareness beings that basically protect but what are they? I asked my dad this question, like these wrathful beings, right? If wrath is like one of the seven deadly sins, if you take Christianity out of the context, and also Buddhism is a more internal world focus, whereas Christianity is a more external world, like external out there, right? Whereas my experience is internal here. He's explaining some differences between the two path workings. However, what was really interesting is this idea that the wrathful beings, actually, what are they wrathful of? They're wrathful of the delusions that we have, the anger that we hold, the different things. So they're actually wrathful towards those negative states of mind. They want to rid you of those negative states. So they're actually protective, or they're like a guard dog essence, right? Because they are demonic in nature, but they're also protective in nature, which is very, very interesting, like a paradoxical concept, if you can understand this. When we were in Bali in the monkey forest, we all saw this like sacred hedonic artwork on the walls, right? All these monkeys doing funky things, and you go, wait a second, what's going on here, right? And you start to understand that kind of crazy wisdom is a part of a lot of spiritual understanding and teaching, and I'll tell you why. Okay, I'll tell you why. So first we have the Haruka, then we have the other one, which is basically Yeshe Chole. uh I forget his name, man. What did I write down here? Anyway, let's just call him Yeshachole, right? He talked about this idea of primordial wisdom. So he didn't see it as crazy wisdom. He saw it more so as primordial chaos wisdom. And chaos is anything that doesn't match to any pattern, whether that be religious patterns or societal patterns or cultural patterns or social norms. It's going outside the box, right? In a sense, it's completely taboo or forbidden sometimes. So it basically offends the pattern of duality. And if you're familiar with non-duality or non-dual states of awareness, it's a higher expanded blissful states, right? So, a lot of these guys, they back in the day, these monks, like let's take the example of this kind of shock therapy that Drukpa Kinley had. Okay, if you're unfamiliar with Drukpa Kinley, he is like this monk who left his monastic order. He ended up, he was kind of a prankster in youth, but then he grew up and he also became kind of like sexually exploitative, and like he started to do these weird things. He became like a wandering bare naked yogi, right? Just like wandering the streets, bumping into people and like giving them wisdom in a sense. Okay, so first of all, that's already a very bizarre like glitch. Okay, it's kind of like the Diogenes myth of just like this man who doesn't seem to fit in or belong anywhere, but he has the most liberation, right? Because he's free to do whatever he wants in this game of life. However, of course, those things have consequences in the real world, and they didn't even. I mean, now we know that it's bad to do certain things and have certain laws, but back then I don't think they had like a lot of rules or regulations around any of this. I think it became, and he didn't have like 100 students either. You get what I mean? It was like a very like he was just an eclectic dude who just kind of lived off of the grid in a sense, okay, and did his own thing after a while. And this kind of shock therapy, which flips the world upside down like a reciprocal, right? For the math geeks out there. I'm not a math geek, by the way. I'm Indian, but I'm not on God, on Tao, no cap. Dead ass. How many more of these words are we going to come up with, okay, for this century? All right. Give me the next one. What's the next one? Is it slime? Okay. Me and my slime. Anyway, post-traumatic growth, right? This idea in positive psychology, where after you can either have growth or decay, right? You can either build yourself or, completely crumble under the pressure. So that kind of understanding of post-traumatic growth really tells me that this is a very, very deep topic, because like I'm not saying that these are abusers or people who are putting people through trauma in a sense, because in a sense they're not so self-interested. They're not, their teaching is the wisdom. You see, that unpredictability, as you'd like to call it, the enigma, the walking enigma. So you can learn something from this, right? I've definitely learned a couple of things from this energy. First of all, I've learned that if someone pisses me off, I'm going to confront them and I'm going to go right into it. A lot of the times you want to be the better person or whatever, keep your moral high ground and whatever, right? The Heyoka energy just goes, hey, bro, just fuck off, okay? Just let me do my thing, right? That honesty, that it's not a brutal honesty, it's just a in your face honesty. It's a straightforwardness or a bluntness, right? There's no kind of pretense or like, and even though like let's say one of these monks, they made a joke, right, in a sense, and it was during a most let's say unpredictable time. um I think this monk's name was Agita or Ajitta, right? Ajitta. And Ajitta basically means you can't die. So at his, they were saying that he was going to either die of cancer or something like that. It's a very sad event. And he said, Ajitta can't die because his name means deathless, right? And so that was his like joke. And he suddenly like bursted out in the middle of this, location. And not a lot of people got that. They didn't get that wisdom that he's making a play on the words of his name. It's like, oh, he can't die. Okay, cool. He's giving us some reassurance there or something. Oh, okay. He'll be reincarnated, or you know. But this ratio of this extraordinary behavior, but also these extraordinary revelations or these like extraordinary epiphanies, right? Or these realizations, these enlightenments. Like understanding that, right? Someone who breaks the pattern, someone who breaks the norm, completely goes against, what is real and true and here. It's like seeing, like someone photoshopping an image in there that just doesn't, it doesn't seem to fit the rest of the scene. So that agent of chaos, right, is actually creating newness in that environment. It's creating more novelty, right? Because everything has to adapt now to that outlier. It's like, or they just ignore the outlier and completely like just go on their own, right? But notice that the power and the energy of the court jester, this is an archetype I've been fascinated with. Okay, the trickster, the jester, that kind of energy, okay, of Loki, of Puck, of that kind of Pan, okay? That trickster energy is something you can actually tap into. And it's very, very powerful because the court jester was the counsel of the king. It was like the counselor, right? You know how you have guidance counselors for high school? This was the king's counselor. He healed through his humor. He would listen to the king and retort back and reframe things in humorous perspectives. If the whole kingdom was burning down, he could trust that the jester would take care of something, and he could reach to him for solace or refuge. Okay? So a lot of people nowadays, they modernize it to this like Joker archetype. The Joker isn't exactly the same idea as the sacred clown. He does have different aspects of it, definitely. I think there are definite little like droplets or nuances that the Joker possesses as a character, but I think we as a modern culture, we've just attached to that imagery because it's so powerful and such good acting, and it's so in your face, so in there, like that you understand that, oh, this clown archetype, or this funny man is actually a dangerous man at the same time. And I think there's a link there, because the fool in the tarot deck, right, is zero. There's no social hierarchy there for that fool, right? It's funny because fool in Bengali means flower, okay? So you're meant to bloom, okay? That's a weird wordplay that you just said, but hey, as a Bengali man, I've got to state that, and you've got to know that about my culture, how poetic it is, okay? And the brilliance behind that. Like really though, like think about it, right? Cool is flower, okay? Now, the fool in the tarot deck is also zero, so the 0 point of creation, Mushin, zero, right? It's just zero. It's nothingness. It's void. And from there, you get the sacred wisdom, that primordial wisdom, that ancient wisdom, that wisdom that has always been there throughout the ages. Okay? Like a cave during the caveman times, maybe a caveman slipped over a rock or something, and there was there's that primordial humor, right? This crazy thing happening, this prank happening randomly. And you questioning your reality, like, is this real? Is this not real? What's going on? Is this a publicity stunt? Is this chaos? Okay. Am I learning? Am I not learning? What's going on? Okay. And as your mind starts to search for it, it actually transcends itself. As your mind starts to search for the answer, it actually starts to transcend. It starts going beyond the dimensions where the mind has actually been in. So you could have a shocking thing happen to you, like, I don't know, you got flashed by a nun or something like that, or like you saw like a giant like a squirrel, like the 10 times human size in one of your dreams, or you randomly see like a beggar wearing like disco clothes or something in the street, and you go, huh? Right? Like all these little nuances of just things that make you go, huh? What? But it's actually teaching you something. It's teaching you to break you out of that dull pattern of laziness and complacency. That is a pattern interrupt in your life to force you to awaken, to actually push you towards the brink of enlightenment, right? Saying that it's already within you, it's already there. And so that's really the sacred wisdom, is this kind of, it's not like this I don't give a fuck energy, right? You're not just trying to like, oh yeah, I'm so cool, I'm gonna do all these crazy zany things, right? You're not like gonna be like the Tasmanian devil, okay? Right, spinning around and just doing a bunch of nonsense and then escaping and dipping out. Okay, you're not just an agent of chaos. You are the catalyst that emerges the nervous pattern of like laughter in somebody that makes them go, you can't help but laugh at the ridiculousness of the moment, right? And I think there's something very powerful about fooling around or goofing off in regards to the Heyoka spiritual tradition of a spiritual ceremony or a ritual, because they considered these pranks or goofing off as a way that they would actually pray to the divine, right? And this is a powerful understanding because they also got this power from these thunder beings. Now, this is interesting because it's related to the Tibetan Buddhism or the Zen Buddhism in some way, right? In terms of that kind of Vajra theme, right? That I keep saying this word to you guys, okay? TXL's got a Vajra. I recently saw he got one. That's amazing, bro. Like, I'm so glad when people actually choose to incorporate these teachings into their regular life and impact their lives on an incredible basis, right? So let me just show you guys my Vajra. Hold on. Okay, so the prongs were closed by the Buddha. There was a sage is made by the bones of a sage, this weapon, and then it's kind of these prongs are closed. And if you notice the prongs, it's also the makara. Okay, and the makara is my archetype. I'm the gatekeeper of flow state wisdom, so I'm like the sea monster of the Vedic myths. So I'm kind of like a Heyoka in its own sense. I'm more towards a little bit more towards the light rather than the darkness. The darkness would be more so like that Leviathan type of energy, right? Where the makara is more so like an actual wisdom keeper, right? It's like holds the keys to and protects the temples and the sacredness of the temples and so forth, right? So just have to differentiate this for some of you, hardcore Christians or whatever, in terms of that like Makara theme, right? And he says, not that I need to prove it to you or like justify myself, but I'm just stating it out for the people wondering about why did you choose the Makara, bro? Like what is that there? What is it out there? Okay. So listen, when we did the event in Bali, by the way, we have a new event coming out in Costa Rica. Okay. So if you're interested, definitely shoot me a message. So raw chilies were something that we ate, naga chilies, right? During that time, you can go watch those old videos. And you got to understand that this was a part of the Heyoka or the Hakoya instance. I have to retrain myself to say Heyoka from now on, right? Because it's just like flip the word, right? But this kind of this understanding, right, is so very powerful that we were eating these raw chilies and we were purging while Ryan was purging, right? And I was just like going through this metaphysical transformation from the heat internally, right? But then the teacher of the crazy wisdom will also get you like milk and give you air conditioning and help you give you a towel, right? And tell you can do this. You got this, right? Like it seems impossible in the moment, but they can guide you through it. And whatever you feel and think is going on in another's mind, that empath quality, a lot of people associate Heyoka with empath. So you'll see a lot of like videos online about like Heyoka empath, Heyoka empath, Heyoka empath, Heyoka empath. And I think it's it's kind of an American like back to the roots kind of thing, like you connecting back to your roots, like your Native American roots. And I think that's a very empowering theme as well, like to actually connect with that archetype in the land. However, notice that this can also be very chaotic, right? So you got to understand that you also share the burdens of others. If you're sharing other people's emotions and thoughts, right, and you're holding space and like an extra mind that you're holding with your own mind with others, you're going to feel very burdened and drained and annoyed and all these things. And so the native clown understands that they have more power than a nuclear weapon. Okay, they have more power than they can topple the entire world's economy upside down. This Heyoka and this Heyoka energy. Okay, and that's actually terrifying, but also intimidating, intense to think about. But at the same time, it's such a deep learning because it is that the fool is not attached to anything. You see. And the fool is not saying what is conventional. The fool is saying, bro, you're fucking wrong for thinking that. And I'll stand up for my sovereignty saying that, right? Like that pure truth that just cuts through like a diamond or a vajra. Vajra is also known as diamond, right? So that, like, instead of going the Drukpe Kinley route and like outrageously, you know, trying to overturn religious, you know, convention by having you know these giant penises on like monastery walls and like all these, you know, like colored different phalluses of different kinds and sizes, you know, across Tibet, you know, instead of that weird bizarre understanding, it's weird to us, right? But it's actually symbolic there, right, in that teaching. So I'm talking about this as a complete foreigner, as an outsider, right? Speaking about these topics from a very analytical perspective and understanding that, hey, even in my practice, I don't like to use the word crazy, okay? Because crazy implies that there's something wrong with me. Crazy implies that, you know, that I'm an outcast, that I'm a misfit, that I'll never fit in. It creates these difficult archetypes of like non-belonging and so forth. And we know that we're social creatures. We want to belong. You know, these teachers didn't have a lot of students, and so you got to understand how important a sangha is or a community is, right? I have a YouTube community actually listening to this, taking notes, you know, going through the videos again, like really understanding them, and then moving forward, right? Just like I've taken notes from different videos and I've converted them into my ideas, and through that process, right, of like a systemization of this wisdom. So let's start to understand that, like, Chogyam Trungpa's, you know, crazy wisdom. I mean, I reframe crazy as extreme, okay, or crazy as highly creative, or crazy as eccentric, or crazy as genius. Okay, these words are very good replacement words, because what is crazy other than you're just, you know, culturally unconditioned? Like you're not conditioned towards any cultural thing. You're just an anomaly, right? I saw this beautiful image, by the way, of this wolf in sheep's clothing, right? It's like the outline of a sheep, but it's a wolf inside. It has wolf's eyes inside the sheep. I was thinking that. I was looking at that image. I was like, damn, that's fucking powerful, right? Like me, I look very innocent on the outside, but internally, I'm an absolute monstrosity, right? And that is that Heyoka power. You get what I mean? Like to have the playfulness and that quality of that, but at the same time hold your own and hold your gravitas somewhere internally where you can, you know, break through in a sense, like create these breakthrough moments or these pattern interrupting moments where you do something. Like I'll do random things at times, right, just to break myself down out of that egoic trance, out of that mundane, like, oh, I'm doing this way, and it must be like this, and it has to do it in this particular path working. It must be like in this particular way. Okay, no, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in evolution and expansion. And so what am I going to do? I'm going to trust that Heyoka energy to come through me. Okay? I'm connected with Chief Deno through that Native American, you know, lineage somehow, right? He's an anamorph, and he turns into that the great white tiger, you know, theme of. He taps into the tiger energy, and I noticed that the Bengal tiger is also a very important theme for me culturally, right? Speaking of that, however, I've started to understand this Heyoka energy more so like this is an energy of surprise. Okay. So, you know, when you're surprised, you like, let's say someone has a surprise birthday party for you, right? And you suddenly streamers start, you know, from your room, and you're like, whoa, what's going on? Like you get suddenly like bewildered and stifled. And some people don't like surprises, right? So that's another thing. Heyoka energy can be very intimidating for them, right? They're going, whoa, I did not want to face this. Okay. Um, you can't be so frantic and jumpy over everything. You get what I mean? The Heyoka is not like that frantic and jump. They don't fear anything, bro. You get it? They don't fear anything. They're the jester. They're laughing throughout their life. That is their healing process. And you understand that they're not here to, follow some kind of a conventional role. They're actually here to create their own role. They're here to break the old patterns and create newness, right? Like Shiva's energy of destructing. Like, you can't build a skyscraper on top of another skyscraper, man. There's got to be this primordial chaos wisdom that comes through. By the way, we're going into a little bit of chaos magic as well, just to get a proper understanding of this kind of stuff before we, dive into it. I mean, I always love learning and I'm always expanding. So that's the thing. You got to continuously return back to your education and your wisdom along these flow state, path workings and the way you're moving forward with this thing, right? Like, a lot of the times you're not an empath, you're just a pussy, okay, bro? Like, I'll tell it straight to your face, okay? You're just being a little sissy weakling. You're not being an empath, okay? Oh, I'm just taking in other people's energies, okay? Sometimes you're just being weak in your character, in your morality, in your choices, okay? So what do we need besides that strength that comes through? And how can we get to that strength? We can't be attached to too many things. We've got to be zero. We've got to be the fool in the tarot deck, you see? We got to be able to be that wild card that shows up and anything can happen from there. That standpoint, right? That's what gives this person this freedom. Look at Russell Brand. He can say some outrageous shit on an interview, right? And he just gets away with it. That's the Heyoka energy. It's the ability to just be like, and then fudge started coming out of that cat's ears. And you go, what? Why did he just say that? You fucking insane, right? But then later you start to get, the metaphor that connects with the, that we have shit in our ears based on, how we've been pussies our entire lives, and it's depicted through a cat. And actually the maybe the feces is coming out of the ear. And then you start linking it together, right? After a while. But in the moment you go, what is that? It's only the integration process where the wisdom comes through. You got to understand, okay? So, hey, do you have to be a completely Zen purified person to be enlightened? No, they're enlightened beings. They're also horrible people, okay? So we got to differentiate between enlightenment and this goodness archetype, okay? Because a lot of the times someone will get enlightened, but they also lack that human moral code or that compassion. This is why the Tibetan lineage teaches so much on compassion. And it's so important to go towards that compassion, because otherwise, we're actually destroying, because these beings, these enlightened beings, have more reach. Hey, if you reach enlightenment, you can change the rules of this video game. You get that? So these maybe darker beings are getting enlightened through a different way, right? Hey, Lucifer still represents the light, okay? They're getting enlightened through a different way, but now they have more control over this whole matrix. You get what I mean? There's more control over the systems. And this is what some of the elites are doing. They're getting enlightened, but they're not getting enlightened the way that we know it. So this is a different type of that. And I think that enlightenment is a different word. I think it's definitely some form of realization or crystallization of knowledge in such a way where you realize that there is no self, there is no I, right? That's the most purest understanding of it, okay? So you could say that, someone once said, if you have a choice between enlightenment and $1 million, choose the $1 million, because at least the $1 million has an I or a self that receives that money. You know what I mean? Like, and so I love that. I love that example, and it's such a brilliant example to come through and give that understanding that before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water, right? So we got to be really conscious of this knowledge, this path working, this wisdom, and carve our own destinies, okay? It's not, I don't give a fuck, and it's not, I care so much about this thing. It's somewhere in between. And I think that's where the crazy wisdom comes in. And I think that's where we find our truth and find our purity, and we find our truest expression of ourselves, and not these muted, diluted reflections of people, like kind of showing parts of ourselves to some people sometimes. You get what I mean? So that's my mission, at least. I want to be, completely open and free in my expression wherever I go, right? I don't want to act differently around a CEO than with a janitor. Like, I don't. I want to be that guy who, and I am that guy in a sense, but it's rusty still. It needs to have some kind of formulaic quality to it that starts to emerge and move forward in that sense. You get what I mean? Man, I love giving lectures like this. You can hear it behind my vocals, my energy, my intention. Everything is it's just there, man. It's so pure, and I can't stop speaking about these things because they're so fascinating to me. You get that? These teachings are deeper than we think. Okay, this kind of shock therapy of you suddenly waking yourself up, like listening to a genre that you would never expect, or taking a new road to work, or doing some kind of novel, crazy, wild experience. Yeah, to the eyes of society, it's crazy, but you just learned some badass truth. You just learned something that gave you an extraordinary awakening or epiphany, or woke you up out of your complacency, out of your dull trance, and made you rethink everything, right? Rethink the way you're living life, rethink the way you're doing things. You're thinking, man, this teacher has it all figured out. Maybe I'll go and move and stay with them, right? That is that quality of the Heyoka. Okay. They can connect with anybody, any human soul on this planet. They can connect with instantly. Okay, because they're sharing their thoughts, they're sharing their mind, they're sharing the shared space of interconnectedness, but it's also a playfulness within that. So they're teaching them to laugh at some of the harsh truths. They're teaching them not to get attached. They're teaching them, the idea of these masters having groupies or whatever. The groupies, they don't expect anything, right? Now, if they expect something like, oh, I'm going to get realization from this master, that's a different story. That becomes exploitative, right? But a musician who has groupies, they're not going to be on like the 7th album or whatever, right? They're just hanging around, kind of shooting the shit, maybe getting together or whatever, right? But it's not like that deep understanding of like, oh, there's this transactional nature. You know what I mean? It's like a master is teaching, you come around. Okay? Anywhere. Like I will go learn from a master who is not a master in my field. And I'll listen with all ears. Why? Because maybe I can apply it to my flow state discipline in some way. Because everything is flow state in a sense. So that means that life becomes my entire playground. Okay, my entire chisel, my entire blank canvas or easel, and I can start to create the paint of my consciousness to create the world that I truly want to live in. And sometimes that'll be unpredictably unpredictable. It'll catch you out of the blue, man. I'm telling you. Okay, that strange man that you sat next to in a subway sometime that randomly gave you some piece of advice or wisdom, that changed the course of everything for some of you. Okay? And you don't realize that. Like Eckhart Tolle sat on a park bench, bro. That's Heyoka. What is that? You just sit on a park bench and you get enlightened? Okay? That is it. But before that, also, there was trauma. He was contemplating suicide, okay? So start to understand that this has a real big, this is a big deal. And I'm reminding you it's a very, very big deal, okay? Because you might be the goofy clown in your group of friends, you're the class clown, but you're still not sacred. You're still not tapping into your spirituality in a way where you can carry this Heyoka energy, this Native American dance, okay? Making this thing into a fun, playful ritual where you connect with the gods, these thunder gods, where that electricity zaps people awake, right? Man, I hope you enjoyed this video. This is a very deep topic. Thank you so much for listening. I love all of you. Hit that like, subscribe button. You already know. Hit up my programs. Let's get it. Us. Upward Spiral Gang Gang. On down. Let's go.